Well, all right, we're going to continue this roast of this panel discussion from the ERLC Gospel Coalition MLK 50 conference. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. Some of the stuff that was right after the last section we did was a little too serious. Probably couldn't meme on it too much. So we skipped ahead a little bit, and we're going to get to some of the good stuff. I've listened to about 30 seconds of this, so the first 30 seconds won't be live reactions, but the next... after that it will be. So anyway, well, while we're here, if you are enjoying these videos, I hope to kind of transition a little bit. We're going to continue to do some of this funny stuff, but also maybe some serious stuff. There's been a couple of requests that I'm going to do. So if you like this stuff, definitely subscribe and let me know if you have anything in particular you'd like to hear. Anyway, let's jump right in.
Home group, take us into the living room of your house and your.
Okay, so the dean of women in the school, the person in the middle, she just talked a lot about Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and how she's suffered through those two situations, and so this guy's asking her to take us into like her living room and what that was like, and so we'll start here.
Having people over and these conversations are happening, like what thing can you give us to just take away to help guide us in these moments? Because I think many people of color are very frustrated in those moments because how can you not feel this with me?
Right.
And then the people who don't feel it, they're just like, well, we just don't feel it. Like, and why do you feel it like the way you feel it? So is there anything else? I know that I'm sort of digging in a little bit, but is there anything that you can give us as we're in the midst of those moments where we're just staring at each other, one weeping and one like, when are we going to eat dinner?
Right.
Like, or when are we going to get
What? Look, when are we gonna eat dinner? Look, this is really weird. You know, I don't. You know, when Trayvon Martin was shot and when like Michael Brown was shot, like, look, nobody's happy that men are dead, right? But I did not, have a tremendously, negative reaction to either one. First of all, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened, and especially with the Michael Brown situation, a lot of the evidence seemed to be that it was potentially a justified shooting. Nobody's happy that it happened, but I'm not going to necessarily weep if it was a justified killing. But again, I don't know what happened, so and I don't know the people, I don't know the family, so it didn't really affect me. I didn't really have, I wasn't weeping in my room about that. But why does this guy paint it like, we've got this poor woman weeping over this, and it obviously really affected her, and that's fine. And then, but like her friends are just standing there like, oh, yeah, get over it. Let's go get something for dinner. Who's saying that, man? My goodness gracious. I mean, I don't think that actually ever happened. I think that's made up. Presenting the opposition as if they're like soulless, evil, just, ooh. Let's see what she says.
The next thing, like, how do we navigate those moments?
You don't, because that's a made-up moment. Nobody's ever seen a weeping woman and said, hey, let's go get some dinner.
I think if you love someone, what hurts them has to do something to you. And I think the reality of staring at a blank wall when you're in grief sends a message that you don't...
Look, I'm not going to say she's lying. Maybe she was weeping, and maybe one of her like evil white friends was just like, yeah, let's go get something to eat. No, I don't think that actually happened, actually. I'm not going to say she's lying. I think she probably interpreted something that happened like that, but I highly doubt that it was just like that. A blank wall, no emotion, don't care at all, and you're sitting here weeping. That doesn't seem very likely to me.
Love me. That's the message that was said. I also, Cortland and I are in the same growth group, and I remember when I brought up, I'm grieving, and there was silence. And Baldwin said, long after the words of my enemies are gone, the silence of my friends will linger. And just saying that, your silence hurts more than the violence.
Well, of course it does, because the violence wasn't done to you. But here's the thing, like, again, like, I don't want to get too serious here, but your friends are probably silent because they don't actually understand why you're grieving. And so, maybe you could explain it to them. Maybe you don't have to interpret them as being evil. Because if somebody was weeping to me over Michael Brown, I would be like, that's very sad that this has affected you so much. But I wouldn't weep about it. I mean, I wouldn't change my opinion because I don't have really that informed of an opinion. We've got two sides of the story. We've got the side that says that these cops were just racist and they targeted Michael Brown because he was a black man. They just wanted to shoot a black man. And then we've got another side that says, well, he reached for my gun. And to be perfectly honest, that side seems pretty believable to me in that instance. And I don't believe the police officers in every instance. I'm one of these wackos that takes each situation individually and doesn't really consider the race of each side when I'm making my decision of what happened. I just kind of look at the facts and I say, oh, well, Michael Brown certainly seems to be a bit of an aggravated young man. He had just done a robbery, and here's the cop, and the cop said that he reached for my gun. I mean, I don't know if that happened, but it seems kind of believable. He certainly seems like a thug. I'm one of these weirdos that kind of takes them each on a case-by-case basis. Not every situation is like that. But anyway, maybe they're quiet because they don't know what to say. They don't agree with you, but they don't want to necessarily make you mad by you're obviously upset. You're weeping here in this story. So what are they supposed to say? Well, I'm sure they said, like, I'm sorry, or gave you a hug or something. I don't know. What do you want them to say?
Your silence in knowing that I will process this or be in this space alone hurts more than what has actually happened. Because I will go to a funeral and I will grieve and I will process, but I will grieve with people who understand. But when I have to come back here and I feel alone in my grief, there's something especially hurtful about that.
You're choosing to take the hurt there, though. That's the thing. They're not intending to hurt you. They're probably not saying anything for the specific reason that they do not want to hurt you. So you're choosing to interpret that a certain way, as if they don't care about my feelings. They just hate me, and they're evil, and they're just soulless and blank. And that's how you're choosing to interpret it. So much of this movement, so much of this, even this conversation, is just about everyone else is responsible for what I feel. That's not true, by the way.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, like, to the original question and the point that you were talking about, Dean Branch, in terms of carrying that burden, and then the additional burden of, like, educating folks in the majority, educating white folks. I want to quote the great sci-fi writer Tananarive Due, who I heard say this about a month ago.
You see how he just kind of slips that recommendation in there with you?
And that is, and I'm talking mostly to my white brothers and sisters, but Google is for free every day. Right? It is not the responsibility of black folks to educate us. Right? They might choose to do that, and if they choose to do that, that's totally their.
Nobody thinks it's anyone's responsibility to educate anybody. But if you're going to make a big deal of this, and you want us to feel what you feel, and you want everyone who disagrees with you on social justice to become a social justice warrior, then yes, it is actually your responsibility to make that happen. I'm not going to go to Google and search everything that I'm not interested in. If I'm not interested in it, I'm not going to search for it. I am interested in this, and so I do use Google. I do research this on my own, right? But just because I'm interested in it doesn't mean everyone is interested in it. So if you actually want to make change, then yes, you actually is your responsibility to make that change. Not everyone else is responsible to make the changes that you want to see in the world.
Choice, right? But that is not their responsibility. We have infinite materials at our disposal to educate ourselves. And
why assume they haven't either? That's the other thing. I guess they're just stupid, or they're ignorant. They don't care. Lots of people have researched this stuff. They don't agree with you.
And that is the burden, at least since we cannot bear the experiential burden of knowing what that would feel like. I might be able to empathize to some degree, but it is not my reality. So since that is a...
It's not her reality either. She's choosing to insert herself into this. She already said she was not related to Michael Brown. She already said she wasn't related to Trayvon Martin. She is choosing to feel the way she feels. She is choosing to interpret that as an attack on her. It is not. At least there's no evidence that it was. So, yeah, it's not your burden, but neither is it hers. She's choosing to take that on. When Trayvon Martin or when Michael Brown was shot and killed, you have the choice. You can either take that as an attack on all blacks or not. And I don't think there's any evidence that it was an attack on all blacks. So if you choose to do that, that's up to you. That's your own mental state.
Burden I can only share in part. This burden of education is a burden that we should be responsible for.
Nope.
White brothers and sisters.
So oftentimes in these discussions, because of the history of our country, it's easy for conversations about race to end up talking about black and white. That binary is there. It's like the big elephant in the room. But at the same time, there are other cultures in that mix. And so,
Yeah. Yes, Southeastern. What about the Latinos? You don't even have a director of Latino leadership and development. What's that about? What a bunch of racists.
Dr. Echeverria, can you help us understand some of the liabilities with just reducing the conversation about unity strictly to being black and white?
Well, this is going to be good. I know it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we forget sometimes that there are also Hispanics.
Who forgets? Yeah, we just forget. Oh, man, oh, man.
Asians, Indians, and other groups who have struggled.
Dude, why do you hate Latinos so much? I just don't understand. Hispanics, Asians, and Native Americans, but what about the Latinos? We're like 12% of the United States population, but we're like 0% of the MLK conference. That proves oppression, by the way. We're oppressed minority. We're completely marginalized, and to be perfectly honest with you, I think it proves that you're all racist.
With individual racism, systemic racism, I can speak to the Hispanic experience. I'm Cuban.
You really can't. You can only speak to your experience, because I'm pretty sure whatever nonsense you're about to say right now doesn't apply to me. Then again, I'm Latino, not Hispanic.
I was born in this country. My first language is Spanish, though.
Oh, so you're not Cuban. You're actually an American.
And as a Hispanic male, there are things that we deal with that others have dealt with as well, whether it be institutional racism, individual face-to-face racism, the idea of being in a place, whether an academic institution or a church, where if I work hard and I have gifts that God has given me, that somehow I'm going to be promoted over time, where I'm going to get those opportunities that others might get, my white brothers and sisters. That's not always the case, right? I think we know.
It's not always the case with white brothers and sisters either. I like it.
How some of those promotions and those jobs often take place. You have to be in certain circles of friends, and when an opportunity comes up, it's like, hey, so-and-so would be great, but so-and-so also happens to be a friend of mine, or a friend of a friend of mine. And we're not often in those circles where we can be promoted and get those opportunities.
Notice that none of that has anything to do with race. It's all about friendships. Unless you're saying that these guys are like, well, look, here's what we're going to do. We're only going to promote our friends, and we're only going to have white friends, and that's what's going to happen. Isn't he a director at a university? What is he talking about? He has the permission, the position, he has the promotions.
That some other brothers and sisters might get, just like our black brothers and sisters struggle with as well. Also, when you talk about the Hispanic experience, there are lots of experiences, right? We can be white, we can be black, we can be mulatto, we can be mestizo, we can speak an indigenous language, we can speak Spanish. We don't all like the same foods. We don't all like the same sport. For example, I'm Cuban. I like baseball. All right, I played baseball in college. I love soccer, but I like baseball more. And we miss out on what others struggle with, that we ourselves struggle with as well. So I'm in the academy, for example, at Southeastern. One thing I struggle with.
How'd you get that position if everyone's so racist and you have to be friends with the white people in order to get the promotions? Like, what'd you do? Maybe they just thought you were white. I don't know.
Just like mine.
A lot of people think I'm white too. A lot of people will comment on these videos and say that the only reason I think this way is because I'm white. And then I tell them that I'm not white, and then they say, well, you know, you've got light enough skin, so it probably has infected your brain, and you think like a white person.
My black brothers and sisters is I look and I see across the spectrum. I don't see many leaders of institutions who are minorities, specifically Hispanic. I think we're just starting to bring in faculty members into our spaces who are of Hispanic and other minorities.
You never notice that social justice warriors love using the word spaces. It's like, oh, this is a white space, and these are our spaces, and those are your spaces, and these are Latinos. Well, no, not Latinos. We're not talking about Latinos. We're talking about Hispanics here. Hispanic spaces. What is it even? Where does that come from? Where does that come from?
Minority groups.
I know where it comes from. It comes from critical theory.
What I'd like to see over time is when we consider, say, a Hispanic for a position, I think a person can be well qualified for an ethnic position at an institution, but if that person has the administrative and faculty goods, I think that person should also be considered for at a position in higher administration, say a dean or a provost at an academic institution. Those are just some of the examples that come to mind that others might struggle with in other groups as well.
Yeah. That's true. You know, my brother made a really good point. He was at a Christian college, a Presbyterian college in Pennsylvania, and his grades slipped at one point during his schooling, and he got an email from the diversity, you know, whatever, the dean of diversity studies, whatever, and basically was like, hey, do you need extra help? Do you need, you know, this and that for, you know, to get your grades up? And, you know, he noticed that around the same time, a lot of his other friends also had bad grades, actually worse than his, and they got no such email. And he responded, don't ever contact me again. I'm not interested in your extra help. Thank you very much, kind of thing. And what he kind of was saying was like, you know, it's kind of like, it's almost disrespectful to have like a special director of Latino development when you don't have one for white people, because it's like, oh, well, you poor Hispanics, you really need some of my help, and you know, we're gonna make a special little area for you where you get your extra help, and all. That's so demeaning, man. That is such a microaggression. And also, you know, there's like scholarships for Latinos and Hispanics. I know that's one of the things that came out of this MLK conference, is like all these diversity scholarships now, you know. But the thing is, like, Latinos and like Hispanics, they're not like exempted from the regular scholarships, the ones that aren't diversity focused. So like Latinos and Blacks, they have all this opportunity to get the ethnic scholarships, but also the regular scholarships. Whereas whites are disadvantaged because they only have the ability to get those regular scholarships, right? So jacked up, man. That is so jacked up. Also, here's something that I was thinking. Why wouldn't people, like, you know, just start presenting themselves as Latino? How would you ever know? Would you gotta take their DNA or something? You don't have a Latino last name. Oh yeah, my dad's white, but you know, my mom's Latino. This is just so stupid. This is like the dumbest idea ever, to make your skin color or your ethnic background like important for something. Like that's so counterproductive to what we're trying to do. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do, where it's like, oh, well, I want to be partial to this ethnicity for this scholarship. That's all it is. It's partiality. It's partiality written into code. Anyway, hope this was funny. God bless.